If we are not being lied to, if we are truly not in an economic crisis like they keep telling us, then why are we spending like we're in one? Look at this chart with me because we are going to dig into exactly what is going on and, more importantly, what is coming next. Now, this is fascinating because it shows deficit as a percentage of our total GDP. So how much the United States is spending as a percentage compared to GDP, specifically in years where unemployment was under 6%. Now, right here, this dotted line is actual versus projected. So actual for 2024 was 6.7%. Now, if you just heard 6.7%, doesn't mean that much, but if we look at the last 50 years, right, any time that there was significant deficit spending, on average over the last 50 years, it was 2.4%. 2.4%. The reason why this blows my mind is that something isn't adding up. If you're telling me that in 2024, it was 6.7%, triple the last 50-year average up from 2023, yet the economy is robust, unemployment is low, things are going great, well then why are we spending like we're in a crisis? Could it be that we're actually in a crisis already? More on that in a second. Now, 2021, right here, right? Like, I mean, this is what, 12%, 13%. That made sense. All that spending made sense. I'm not saying that it should have been spent, but at least the messaging aligned with the spending, right? We were told to our faces, we are going to spend a lot of cash we don't have. We're going to print a lot of money because ultimately we need to keep the economy afloat. Okay, fine. You're at least calling a spade a spade. But this past year, we've been told time and time again, everything's great, everything's fine. So then why are we spending like it's not, huh? Who's going to answer that? Especially when we look at the future. So over here, projected 10-year average deficit, 6.3%. So exactly more of what we had this year over the next 10 years. Does this look sustainable to you? Look at history and then look at the future. It does not make sense. No, this is extremely concerning because, again, this tells us that we are already in a crisis and they are spending to cover it up. But then the question you have to ask yourself becomes, how long can they spend like this before they can't cover it up anymore, before it all comes crashing down? I'll tell you this much, it cannot go on forever. And in fact, it can't even go on for that much longer, and I'm gonna prove it. I am looking at usdebtclock.org. It has up-to-date information on the US national debt and a bunch of other metrics, but specifically right now, I want to focus on the interest on our debt, right? So interest on debt right here, over $1 trillion was spent on just servicing the debt over the last year. Now compare that to defense and war, the entire defense budget, more on servicing the debt. Look at Social Security and Medicare, 1.5, 1.8, interest on debt, 1. I mean, that's 2/3 of what we spent on Social Security. And the government wonders why people are scared about retirement, why people are concerned about the future. It's because it is so clear that we do have the means, if we wanted to be able to support our citizens, but instead we continue to rob from everyday Americans, taking their taxes that were promised to be used for prosperity, for growth, for retirement, and instead spending, printing more dollars, devaluing the currency. And instead, all of that cash is going to interest on debt. But unfortunately, this could get a whole lot worse. Now, I'm going to show you why. If we look up here at tax revenue, we see about $5 trillion, right? And over on the left, we have US federal spending, over $7 trillion. Obviously, simple math, if you spend more than you earn, you are going to be negative. That is our deficit, $2 trillion. Now, that deficit adds to our national debt. And as this number continues to tick up, that means our dollars are worth less, right? This is something we've all experienced in our lifetimes and experiencing right now. But the reason why it could get a lot worse is imagine if any of the threats, the triggers that are out there right now, a commercial real estate crisis, banking liquidity, bank failures. Maybe we have the petrodollar collapse, right? Oil being priced in other currencies, whatever it might be. And there's a long list of threats to the system. When things crash, what can we expect to happen? Well, we can expect to see unemployment rise. Now, I'm not getting into today the unemployment numbers, but let's just say for argument's sake, the numbers they give us today are accurate. Well, everything's going down. What happens? Layoffs, businesses close, unemployment rises significantly, far more than it is today. That means we have less tax revenue. As that tax revenue goes down, what happens over here to spending? Do you think that they are going to slow their spending? Probably not. In fact, the opposite usually happens, right? That chart we were just looking at, in times of crisis is when spending goes up. So we will have less tax revenue, more spending, meaning more debt, meaning more is going to the interest on our debt. There are more dollars going towards servicing the debt. You might be wondering, okay, well, surely they have a plan. Surely there's something that they're going to do to stop this. I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but ultimately they do have a plan. And you know what it is? More spending, more spending. Look at this. U.S. national debt on course to double in just 8 years. Look at 2017, 20 trillion. Up here, 40 trillion in just 8 years. This is what unsustainable looks like. And I know someone out there is probably wondering, well, okay, I see what you're saying. There's going to be a crisis, but how is this even going to happen? Because I know you agree it can't go on forever. And the answer is the reason that we are able to spend like this in a way that other countries can't is because we are the global reserve currency, meaning that there's always been a demand for dollars for our debt. But that is changing. Anyone who tells you that the dollar will always be the global reserve currency or there will always be demand for dollars is either A, lying to you, maybe they're lying to themselves too, or B, they haven't done the research because this isn't a theory, this isn't a hypothesis. These are cold, hard facts that we are looking at. I am absolutely, yes, of course, talking about geopolitical movements such as the BRICS bloc, right? Or again, oil being priced in other currency. But I am also looking at the numbers, which do not lie here as far as more countries moving away from the dollar. It's a fact. And it's a trend that's been happening for a while. Now, this is from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund themselves. And if we look here in about 2000, right, the US dollar share of foreign exchange reserves as a percent was about 72%. 72% of all foreign exchange reserves were the US dollar. Now, cut to 2023 over here, we have about 55%. I mean, that is significant to go from 73-ish% down to 55%. That is a move away from the dollar. Now, someone out there is going to say, okay, sure, but that was over the last, 20 years. Yes, okay, absolutely. That just shows two things to me. Number one, it shows that this is a trend that has been going on for a long time. And number two, it's a trend that's not stopping anytime soon. We also can see here, look at this, in the last couple of years, it's accelerating. It is accelerating. People are moving away from the dollar. Countries are moving away from the dollar. Why? Because multiple reasons. Number one, they can't trust the United States. Again, cut back to the US debt clock, right? We are continuing to print our currency at an exorbitant rate. It just means that people do not trust us moving forward. We are less creditworthy than we ever have been in the past. Another big reason, of course, is the weaponization of the US dollar. Sanctions. People no longer feel like they can trust the dollar as a reliable reserve. As these countries move away from using the dollar as a reserve, it means there is less demand for the dollar. But what we are living in right now is a process. This is where people get confused. They focus on an event. Well, the event hasn't happened yet. You could think of it as a series of events leading to one really big event. That being a currency reset, that is the finish line, but we are not there yet, right? We are in the process of it, meaning that every day, every minute, as that debt clock ticks up, inflation ticks up with it, right? Your dollar is worth less. Eventually, that inflation grows and grows, leading to hyperinflation, where the rate of inflation is happening at a much more rapid, significant pace. Eventually, that becomes unsustainable, and suddenly, bam, currency reset, meaning that the dollar is reset or revalued, devalued significantly in a way to attempt to save a system that was already broken while you are the victim and lose everything. Now, that means that you never have more power to act to protect yourself than you do today. What do I mean by that? Well, your dollar is never going to be worth what it once was, right? They claim that inflation is under control. They celebrate the Federal Reserve as doing a miracle, right? A soft landing, a no landing, whatever they want to say, that they got inflation under control. No, we're not going back to prices that we had 5 years ago. We're not going back to prices that we had 100 years ago. Ever since the Federal Reserve was created, our dollar has continued to lose its purchasing power, meaning every day that we wait to act, our dollars are worth less, meaning we have less power. Now, that is why for me, I have chosen to take action to protect myself now outside of the dollar in anti-fiat assets such as physical gold and silver, something that has withstood the test of time over thousands of years as a safe store of value, unlike this fiat currency, which again, every single day is being devalued. But it all comes down to what you are concerned about and what you hope to achieve, right? If you are concerned about this reckless spending, if you are concerned about the timeline getting shorter, that we are moving closer and closer as inflation grows to hyperinflation and a currency reset, well, then that is what we are here to help with. If you want to learn how we can help you prepare for this situation, call us at the number below or click the link in the description below, because that is what our team has decades of years understanding our currency life cycles and ultimately how to help protect people against what's coming next. I can only speak for myself and of course our clients when I think about the peace of mind that we feel when we read an article about the printing press on overdrive or turn on the news and see something that just shows the writing that is on the wall with the system that they destroyed that is cracking in front of our very eyes, knowing that I am not going to get caught in their debt trap, that I have taken my financial future into my own hands. If that is something you want to experience too, let us help us. Call us and understand how we can help you. And as always, in the meantime, I so appreciate you being here. I'm Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading, your trusted source for all things gold, silver, and lifelong wealth protection. Until next time.